Pantone colors are a brand name, just like Kleenex is a brand name for tissues. Pantone colors are a brand name for spot colors. If I select this object, I might want to put a branded Pantone color in this one spot on the cover of my postcard. So with it selected, I'll make sure Fill is on top, so I'm setting the inside color of the box. This shape has no stroke or outline color. So I'll go to my Swatches panel and hit the Panel menu, the 4 little lines with the down arrow in the upper right corner of the panel. And I'll choose New Color Swatch. Instead of Process or the 4-color process, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, black, I'll choose Spot. And when I click on Color Mode, there are a variety of spot color libraries, like Focal Tone, or True Match, or Toyo. But I'm going to choose Pantone Solid Coated. You'll see I've got the choice for uncoated or coated. And when I select coated, the example I always like to give is think of an expensive car brochure, like a Lamborghini brochure. If you spilled coffee on it, it's going to run right off and not be absorbed into the paper because it's coated and glossy, really rich colors. The same thing happens with ink when it hits your paper. If it's a coated stock, the ink isn't absorbed as much, so it stays richer and stronger and more vibrant. If you think of uncoated, newspaper is the cheapest of the examples. They refer to it as toilet paper sometimes, it's so thin. But if you were to spill coffee on your newspaper, it would be absorbed into the paper and ripple it. The same thing happens with ink. The thinner the paper, the more it's absorbed, and if there's no coating, the more it's absorbed, so you might get a slightly duller color. Environmental companies usually go for a recycled paper, but in some cases in the past, recycled was more expensive than simple uncoated paper, so they would go for uncoated to make it look recycled, even though they couldn't afford to buy the recycled. I think they're comparable these days. But I'm going to stick with coated since this will be a glossy coated postcard. And I'll type in Adobe Red, which is Pantone 485. Most designers should look at purchasing a Pantone color guide. It's a little over $100, and that Pantone color guide will show you all of the swatches in the ink they put on press that day. And they have in the front usually coated, in the back uncoated, so you could compare the difference in the vibrance of the ink. So I've selected 485, and I'll click OK, and this object gets that color. I'll click on this bottom middle shape, and shift-click on the top right shape, and also choose 485. I'll go to Pages and double-click on the back of the postcard, and I'll double-click again to go from the Selection tool into the Type tool and inside the text box. You don't have to travel over and click the T. A double-click from Selection or Direct Selection will jump you inside. Triple-click highlights the entire line, and I'm going to choose Swatches and my Pantone 485. It shows the inverse or opposite of the color when it's selected, but if I click once, I could see it did in fact go to red. And if I go to Paragraph Styles, the heading 1 has been modified, or there are overrides, because I changed this color. So what I'll do is hit the Panel menu, the 4 little lines with a down arrow, and choose Redefine Style. This makes heading 1 now use that Pantone 485. If I highlight this text, which is in the character style bold, and I choose Swatches, Pantone 485, in character styles, it didn't pick up the color because there's no color specified, so it will keep whatever color I have. If I double-click on bold and go to character color, nothing is selected, so it could be anything. But if I always want it red when I choose bold, I would select Pantone 485. And finally, I'll go to my Selection tool and click Away, and I'm going to select all the medium gray circles. I'm using my Shift as I click on each one to select them, and in swatches, you'll notice it's an 80% tint. I'll choose Pantone 485, and it kept the 80% tint. Tinting the color is a way to make this two-color job look like it has more than two colors. But I'm going to dial this up to 100, and I think I'll go to the lighter circles. I clicked away. I'll click the lighter circles with my Shift key held down. Again, choose Pantone 485, and this time I'll leave the tint at 50%. And I'll click away to finish. So now I've built a complete two-color job. The last thing I want to note, I'll select a red circle and double-click on Pantone 485. Adobe did add the Pantone Plus color system. A few years ago, Pantone updated their recipes for colors. So Pantone Plus is just the newest of the Pantone libraries. So that's your overview of how to add a new spot color. We chose the branded Pantone and apply it to a job to use two colors instead of four colors to save on printing ink cost. Very common with logos and corporate assets.